The day the aliens came was a Tuesday. Do-hyun sat in his small office at the Korean Aerospace Research Institute, staring at data that made no sense. The numbers on his screen showed something big entering the solar system, something that moved, too fast and changed direction too sharply to be natural. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the calculations again. Do-hyun Kim was not important in the eyes of the world. At 42 years old, he was just another engineer whose ideas were often passed over for safer options. His desk was filled with half-finished designs his bosses had called too experimental. But Do-hyun saw patterns others missed. He picked up his phone and called his friend Minji. "I need you to look at these readings," he said when she answered. "I'm busy, Do-hyun," said Minji. She was one of the country's top physicists, and everyone knew it except the men who ran her department. "This is bigger than whatever you're working on," Do-hyun insisted. "Something just entered our solar system, something artificial." There was silence on the line. "Send me the data," she finally said. 2 hours later, the world changed forever. A dark object Do-hyun had spotted was now visible to telescopes everywhere. It was a ship, clearly made by intelligent beings. It was sleek and moved with purpose toward Earth. News channels played the same footage over and over, a massive silver vessel with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. Do-hyun watched from the main conference room as his bosses and government officials rushed around in panic. No one had asked for his input since his initial report. He stood in the corner, watching silently as the world's powers scrambled to form a response. "Team," his phone buzzed. A text from Minji. "The energy readings are unlike anything we've seen. Come to my lab." Do-hyun slipped out without anyone noticing. "Look at this pattern," Minji said when he arrived. Her lab was crowded with equipment, screens showing data streams from different observatories. She pointed to a graph showing energy pulses from the alien ship. "It's not random," Do-hyun said, seeing the pattern immediately. "It repeats every 27.3 seconds. Minji nodded. "That's not all. The pulses are strongest when the ship changes direction. I think it's their propulsion system, or communication," Do-hyun suggested. "They could be sending signals." They worked through the night, analyzing the patterns. By morning, they had mapped a complex system of energy fluctuations coming from the ship. No one else had noticed this detail yet. The alien ship entered Earth orbit on the third day. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. Religious groups claimed the end times had come. And then, the alien spoke. Every screen on Earth, phones, computers, televisions, showed the same image. A tall, thin being with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its head was hairless with large, dark eyes that seemed to look through rather than at the camera. "People of Earth," it said in perfect English. "I am Commander Thraxil of the Varandari Exploration Fleet. We have observed your world for some time." The alien paused, its expression unreadable. "Your technological development is primitive. Your constant tribal conflicts demonstrate your evolutionary immaturity. We will establish an outpost on your moon to monitor your progress. Should you prove worthy in the coming decades, perhaps we will consider you for limited membership in the Galactic Covenant." The message repeated in every major language before screens returned to normal. The world erupted in chaos. Some celebrated first contact. Others feared invasion. Governments scrambled to form a united response. 1 week later, Do-hyun found himself in the newly formed International Response Center in Seoul. The world's top scientists and diplomats had gathered to establish communication with the Varandari. Director Ji-woo Park, Do-hyun's boss, led the Korean team. She had finally recognized Do-hyun's value after he showed her his analysis of the alien ship's energy patterns. "They're dismissive of us," Ji-woo told the assembled experts, "but they haven't shown hostility. Our goal is to establish respectful communication." The first meeting was arranged via signals to the alien ship. The Varandari sent 3 representatives to Earth's surface, landing in a small craft outside the response center. Do-hyun watched through a window as the aliens emerged. They were taller than humans, with graceful movements despite Earth's gravity. Each wore a form-fitting suit that seemed to shift colors slightly as they moved. In the meeting room, Director Park presented humanity's greatest scientific achievements: quantum computing, nuclear fusion progress, space exploration efforts. The lead alien, introduced as scientific observer Calvo, listened politely. Then he laughed. The sound was unnervingly similar to a human laugh, but with an echo quality that made Do-hyun's skin crawl. "Your achievements are impressive for your evolutionary stage," Calvo said. "But they are childish approximations of technology we discarded thousands of years ago. You are, at best, clever apes playing with tools you barely understand." The room fell silent. Do-hyun felt heat rise to his face, not from embarrassment, but anger. Director Park maintained her composure. "We understand we have much to learn. We hope for cultural and scientific exchange that benefits both our species." Calvo waved a slender hand dismissively. "Perhaps in time. For now, we will observe." The meeting ended with the Varandari announcing their plan to establish a permanent outpost on the moon. They would maintain minimal contact with Earth while they evaluated humanity's potential. 2 days later, the Varandari ship departed for the moon. Before leaving Earth's surface, they delivered what they called a gift to the response center. "This device may help you begin to comprehend true technology," Commander Thraxel announced as a small box was presented to Director Park. "Study it. Learn from it. It is simple enough that even your minds might grasp its basic principles." The box was about the size of a shoebox, made of an unknown material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It had no visible seams or openings. After the Varandari left, Do-hyun was assigned to the team studying the alien device. Initial scans showed nothing. X-rays, ultrasound, and magnetic imaging all failed to penetrate its surface. "They think we're stupid," Minji said as she joined Do-hyun in the new research lab. "They gave us this thing thinking we could never figure it out." Do-hyun nodded slowly, turning the box in his hands. "That's their mistake." "What do you mean?" Minji asked. Do-hyun looked up, determination in his eyes. "Throughout history, humans have done their greatest work when others told them something was impossible. They called us primitive apes. Let's show them what primitive apes can do." As the sun set over Seoul, Do-hyun began the first of many late nights working on the alien device. On the lab's whiteboard, he wrote a simple message that would become their motto in the months ahead: "Underestimation is the greatest advantage." On the moon, the Varandari began building their outpost, confident in their superiority, unaware that the seeds of their misconception had already been planted. The greatest technological revolution in human history was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the Varandari left their gift. 6 months of frustration. The black box sat on a special table in the center of the lab. Around it, dozens of machines blinked and hummed. Scientists from 23 countries worked, day and night, but the box kept its secrets. "Nothing works," groaned Young-ho, the newest member of the team. The young man rubbed his tired eyes. "We've tried every scanning technology on Earth." Do-hyun looked up from his computer. He hadn't slept properly in days. "We're thinking like humans," he said. "We need to think differently." Minji nodded. She had been working with Do-hyun since the beginning. Their friendship had grown deeper through their shared work. She understood his way of thinking. "The Varandari don't see the world the way we do," she said. "Maybe we're asking the wrong questions." Director Park entered the lab. Her face showed the strain of leading the international team. Every government wanted results. The public demanded answers. "Any progress?" she asked, though her tone suggested she expected none. "Not yet," Do-hyun admitted. "But I have a new idea." Instead of explaining, he picked up a small device he had built. It looked like a metal disc with lights around the edge. "What if we stop trying to see inside the box?" he suggested. "What if we study how it affects the world around it?" Director Park raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Everything interacts with its environment," Do-hyun said. "Even this box must affect the space around it in some way." He placed his device near the alien box. The lights on his device began to pulse in an uneven pattern. "See? It's detecting tiny changes in gravity around the box." Changes that follow a pattern. Director Park leaned closer. What does it mean? I don't know yet, Do-hyun admitted. But it's our first real data. Late that night, Do-hyun and Minji worked alone in the lab. They had set up more sensors around the box, each measuring different things: electromagnetic fields, temperature variations, quantum fluctuations. Look at this, Minji said, pointing to her screen. When we combine all the readings, a pattern emerges. Do-hyun stared at the combined data. His tired mind struggled to make sense of it. It's like it's operating in more dimensions than we can see, he said slowly. The box exists in our space, but it's doing something in other dimensions too. That's why our scans couldn't penetrate it, Minji realized. We were only looking in 3 dimensions. Do-hyun felt excitement building. This is it. This is how their technology works. They use dimensions we barely understand. Minji looked at him, her eyes wide. If that's true, this isn't just a box. It could be a computer, Do-hyun finished. A multi-dimensional processor. They worked through the night, measuring and recording every subtle change around the box. By morning, they had built a basic model of how the device might be operating across dimensional planes. 2 weeks later, Director Park called a meeting with the Varandari liaison officer. The alien outpost on the moon had grown into a small base. Occasional ships arrived with supplies and new personnel. The meeting was held at the International Response Center. Sub-Commander Zelvix arrived in a small shuttle, accompanied by 2 guards. You requested this meeting, Zelvix said, his tone bored. What do you wish to discuss? Director Park nodded to Do-hyun. He stepped forward with a tablet displaying their findings. We've been studying your gift, Do-hyun said. We believe it's a multidimensional processing unit. It performs calculations across several dimensional planes simultaneously. Something flickered across Zelvix's face. Surprise, quickly hidden. We've mapped its energy patterns, Do-hyun continued. We've even created a basic scanner that can detect its operations across dimensional boundaries. He handed the tablet to Zelvix. The alien's 4-fingered hand tightened around the device as he studied the data. Interesting observations, Zelvix said after a moment. His voice was controlled, but Do-hyun noticed a new tension in his posture. For primitives, but you're merely scratching the surface of technologies you cannot hope to replicate. Perhaps, Director Park said carefully, but we hope this shows our potential for understanding. We would appreciate any guidance you might offer to further our knowledge. Zelvix handed the tablet back. Your species will need centuries to develop anything comparable to even our simplest technologies. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a small device. However, I am authorized to share some basic information. This will help you better understand our gift. He held the device near the alien box they had brought to the meeting. Lights flickered between them. There, I've activated a teaching protocol that will display some simple principles of multidimensional physics. Study it well. After the meeting, as Zelvix's shuttle departed, Do-hyun rushed back to the lab. Something felt wrong. Check the data. Records, he told Minji. Compare before and after Zelvix used his device. Minji's fingers flew over the keyboard. Her face fell. It's gone, she said. Almost all our recorded data about the box's operations, the patterns we mapped, the dimensional interactions, all erased. Do-hyun smiled grimly. They're worried. What do you mean? Asked Young-ho, who had been watching from nearby. They didn't expect us to learn as much as we did, Do-hyun explained. Zelvix didn't activate a teaching protocol. He wiped our data. They're worried we're learning too quickly. Director Park looked troubled. So we're back to the beginning? No, Do-hyun said. He pulled a small drive from his pocket. I expected something like this might happen. I kept backups on an isolated system, disconnected from our main computers. Minji laughed. You clever man. Do-hyun inserted the drive into a computer. And I recorded everything Zelvix did with his device. If he was trying to erase our progress, he may have revealed something about how their technology works. The screen filled with new data, readings taken during Zelvik's brief interaction with the box. "Look here," Do-hyun pointed. "The erasure process itself teaches us about how their systems communicate. It's like watching someone unlock a door. You learn about the lock by seeing how the key works." Director Park looked at the team. "So what's our next step?" Do-hyun's eyes gleamed with determination. "We build our own key." 1 month later, Do-hyun stood before a small device his team had created. It wasn't much to look at, just a metal cube, with strange patterns etched on its surface. "Will it work?" Director Park asked. "In theory," Do-hyun said. "It can't do what the alien device does, but it should be able to communicate with it on a basic level." He activated their creation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the alien box began to pulse with soft light. "It's responding," Minji whispered. On a nearby screen, data began to appear, streams of information flowing from the alien device. "We did it," Young-ho said in awe. "We're talking to alien technology." Do-hyun nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead. "This is just the beginning. Now we can learn how it really works." As the team celebrated around him, Do-hyun stared at the alien box with new eyes. The Varandari had called humans primitive apes, but they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated human determination. On the lunar outpost, unaware of this breakthrough, the Varandari continued their observations of Earth, confident in their technological superiority. But the gap was already beginning to close. 1 year had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. The Seoul research facility had grown. What started as a single building was now a sprawling complex. Scientists from every country worked there. They all had one goal: to understand alien technology. Do-hyun's team had their own building now. The sign on the door read, "Dimensional Computing Division." Inside, 30 of the world's best minds worked day and night. "Look at this," Minji said, pointing to a screen. The 3D model showed strange energy waves moving between different planes. "I think I've figured out how they connect quantum particles across dimensions." Do-hyun nodded. Dark circles under his eyes showed how little he slept these days. "If we can replicate that, we could build our own processor." Young-ho entered the lab carrying a small tray. On it sat a new material they had created. It looked like a piece of dark glass, but it wasn't glass at all. "The metamaterial works," he said, excitedly. "It can bend light in 5 dimensions at once." Do-hyun picked up the material. It felt strange in his hands, both solid and somehow not quite there. "Perfect," he said. "This is what we need for the housing." In another part of the lab, engineers were building something. It looked a bit like the alien device, but with clear differences. This was not a copy. It was humanity's own creation, inspired by alien principles but designed by human minds. "How much longer?" asked Director Park. She visited every day now. The world's governments were getting impatient. They wanted results. 2 weeks, Do-hyun promised, maybe less. On the moon, the Varandari base had grown larger. Regular ships came and went. Sometimes they sent observers to Earth. Sub-Commander Zelvik's had become the main contact between humans and aliens. He made monthly visits to check on Earth's progress. "Show me what you've learned," he said during his latest visit. His tone was still superior, but Do-hyun noticed a hint of worry in his eyes. Do-hyun showed him carefully selected data. Nothing too impressive, nothing that would alarm the aliens. "Acceptable progress for your species," Zelvik said. "Perhaps in a few decades you might understand basic multidimensional theory." "We hope to learn faster than that," Director Park said politely. After Zelvik's left, Do-hyun turned to her. "They still don't know how far we've come." Director Park nodded. "Let's keep it that way for now." That night, Do-hyun, Minji, and Young-ho worked late. The lab was empty except for them. "It's ready," Young-ho said. "The final piece." He held up what looked like a small crystal. It glowed with a faint blue light. "The quantum core," Minji whispered. "Our version of their dimensional processor." Do-hyun took the crystal and carefully placed it in the center of their device. The housing they had built was smaller than the alien box. It had a sleek, curved design rather than the perfect cube of the Varandari device. Should we activate it now? Young-ho asked. Or wait for the others? Do-hyun looked at his friends. They had worked so hard for this moment. Now, he said. Just us. If it fails, no one else needs to know. Minji nodded and typed a command into her computer. The device hummed softly. The crystal at its heart glowed, brighter. For a moment, nothing else happened. Then the air around the device seemed to shimmer. It's working, Do-hyun said, watching the readings on his screen. It's creating a multi-dimensional field. Run the test program, Minji suggested. Do-hyun sent a simple program to their creation, a calculation that would take Earth's best supercomputer, days to complete. The device processed it in seconds. We did it, Young-ho whispered. We actually did it. The three scientists looked at each other, the weight of their achievement sinking in. Humans had just built technology that the Varandari claimed would take them centuries to develop. This changes everything, Minji said. The next morning, they showed their success to Director Park. She stared at the device in wonder. Are you certain it works the same way as theirs? Not exactly the same, Do-hyun explained. We understood their principles but designed our own version. In some ways, ours is more efficient. More efficient? Director Park repeated. How is that possible? The Varandari approach uses a lot of energy, Minji explained. Our design is more elegant. We found shortcuts they didn't use. Director Park sat down, overwhelmed by the implications. Do you understand what this means? She asked. This isn't just about catching up to them. This could put us ahead. Not yet, Do-hyun cautioned. This is just one small device. They have ships that travel between stars. We have a long way to go. But we've proved it's possible, Young-ho added. We've proved humans can do this. Director Park nodded slowly. The United Science Initiative meets tomorrow. The world's leaders will want to know about this. The United Science Initiative had formed 6 months earlier. It united the scientific efforts of every nation. Old enemies now work together. Resources previously used for weapons were redirected to research. Director Park stood before the USI Council. Leaders from 12 regions represented Earth's governments. We have created a working multi-dimensional processor, she announced, based on principles learned from the Varandari device but designed and built entirely by humans. The room erupted in excited voices. What can it do? Asked the American representative. Currently, it can process information thousands of times faster than our best computers, Director Park explained. But this is just the beginning. The principles behind it could revolutionize energy production, materials science, space travel, everything. Do the Varandari know? The Chinese representative asked. Not yet, Director Park admitted. We believe it's best to continue our work without alerting them to our progress. The Council agreed. Earth would accelerate its technological development, in secret, while maintaining the appearance of slow progress to the aliens. 3 days later, an unexpected message came from the moon. Commander Thraxel himself was coming to Earth for an inspection. Why now? Do-hyun wondered. Has Zelvix reported something? The research team worked quickly to hide evidence of their breakthrough. The human-made processor was locked in a secure vault beneath the facility. When Thraxel arrived, he brought 5 other high-ranking Varandari with him. We are curious about your progress, he said. His voice held the same condescending tone as before. Our observations suggest unusual energy patterns from this facility. We've been conducting various experiments, Director Park explained, smoothly. Learning from your gift as you suggested. Thraxel walked around the lab, his large eyes taking in every detail. Show me what you've achieved, he demanded. Do-hyun demonstrated a simple scanner they had built, impressive by human standards, but far less advanced than their hidden processor. Interesting, Thraxel said. You learn quickly, for primitives. After the inspection, as the Varandari prepared to leave, Thraxel turned to Director Park. We will be watching you more closely from now on, he said. The threat in his voice was clear. As the alien ship departed, Do-hyun joined Director Park at the window. "They suspect something," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "Which means we need to work faster." Do-hyun nodded. "The processor was just the first step. Now we need to apply what we've learned to other technologies. Energy, materials, propulsion." "How long?" Director Park asked. Do-hyun looked up at the sky, where the Varandari ship was now just a dot of light heading toward the moon. "Months, not years," he said. "They called us primitive apes. Let's show them how fast primitive apes can evolve." In the depths of the facility, the human-made processor hummed quietly in its vault, the first creation of a technological revolution that would soon change the balance of power between Earth and the stars. 3 years had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. The world had changed. Cities looked different now. Tall buildings with strange curves reached toward the sky. Cars no longer needed fuel. Lights never went out. All because of what humans had learned from the Varandari device. Do-hyun stood at the window of his new office. The United Science Initiative headquarters spread out below him. Where once stood a small research facility, now stood a city of science. 50,000 people worked there, pushing the limits of human knowledge. "Dr. Kim, they're ready for you," said his assistant. Do-hyun nodded and straightened his jacket. Today was important. Today they would show the world their greatest achievement. Yet the meeting room was large. Government leaders from every nation sat around a round table. Director Park, now the head of the USI, stood at the front. 3 years ago," she began, "the Varandari came to our world. They called us primitive. They thought we would take centuries to understand their technology." She smiled. They were wrong. She nodded to Do-hyun, who stepped forward. "Today, we reveal the USV Pioneer," he said. "The first human-designed ship capable of faster-than-light travel." Gasps filled the room. On the large screen behind Do-hyun, an image appeared, a sleek vessel unlike anything humans had built before. It was beautiful. "How is this possible?" asked one leader. The Varandari said FTL travel was beyond our understanding. "We didn't just copy their technology," Minji explained. She stood next to Do-hyun, now the head of the quantum physics division. "We improved it." Young-ho, who led the materials science team, added, "Their approach to dimensional folding was inefficient. We found a better way." "What does this mean?" asked another leader. "It means," said Director Park, "that we can now travel between planets in minutes, not months or years." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "The Varandari don't know about this?" someone finally asked. "No," Do-hyun said. "They still think we're decades away from understanding basic dimensional physics." "So what do we do now?" Director Park looked around the room, her eyes serious. "Now we decide whether to reveal our true progress to the Varandari. This ship changes everything. It puts us on equal footing with them." The debate lasted for hours. Some wanted to keep the ship secret. Others felt it was time to show the aliens what humans could do. In the end, they decided on a middle path. Earth would reveal some of its progress, but not all. The Pioneer would make a public flight to Mars and back. The Varandari would see it, but they wouldn't know all its capabilities. 1 week later, the Pioneer sat on its launch pad. It didn't look like traditional spaceships. No rockets, no fuel tanks. Just a smooth hull with subtle patterns etched into its surface. Minji would command the first flight. She stood with her crew of 5, all wearing new flight suits designed for the dimensional stresses of FTL travel. "Nervous?" Do-hyun asked her before she boarded. "A little," she admitted. "But mostly excited. We're making history today." The Varandari had been formally invited to witness the launch. Commander Thraxil himself came, along with several of his officers. They stood with the human officials, watching with expressions of bored superiority. "A new ship?" Thraxil said, dismissively. "How quaint. I assume it uses chemical rockets like your other primitive vessels." Director Park smiled politely. "You'll see soon enough." The countdown began. There was no roar of engines, no flames. Instead, the air around the Pioneer seemed to bend. A soft hum filled the air. Then, in a flash of blue light, the ship was gone. Thraxel's large eyes widened. What just happened? The Pioneer has departed for Mars, Director Park explained calmly. We expect it to return in approximately 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Thraxel sputtered. That's impossible. Even with our fastest ships, the journey would take days. Director Park just smiled and looked at her watch. Exactly 18 minutes later, the air above the landing pad shimmered. The Pioneer appeared, settling gently onto the ground. Minji emerged from the ship, holding a small rock. A souvenir from Mars, she said, handing it to Director Park. The red soil near Olympus Mons. Thraxel stared in disbelief. This cannot be. How did you develop this technology? It should be beyond your understanding. Do-hyun stepped forward. We didn't just learn from your device, Commander. We improved upon it. Our dimensional folding technique is more efficient than yours. Impossible, another Varandari officer shouted. Show us how you did this. I'm afraid that would be revealing. Trade secrets, Director Park said, using the same words the Varandari had used when refusing to share their knowledge. Thraxel's face shifted through several emotions. Shock, disbelief, anger. Finally, he settled on cold control. The High Command must be informed of this development, he said stiffly. We will discuss this further. As the aliens departed for their shuttle, Do-hyun heard Thraxel mutter to his officers, How could we have miscalculated so badly? That night, Earth celebrated. The news of the Pioneer's successful flight spread around the world. For the first time since the Varandari arrived, humans felt proud. They were not primitive apes. They were innovators, explorers, equals. But in his office, Do-hyun felt worried. He looked at the latest reports from the orbital monitoring stations. Varandari ships were arriving at the moon base in large numbers. They're concerned, Minji said, joining him. We've surprised them. Or frightened them, Do-hyun added. We need to be careful. We've changed the balance of power. His computer beeped with an urgent message. A Varandari transmission to all Earth governments. Commander Thraxel requests an immediate meeting with Earth's leaders, Do-hyun read aloud. All technological development. Programs must cease until further notice. Director Park entered the office, her face grim. They're trying to stop us now that they see our potential. What will we do? Minji asked. Director Park's expression hardened. We continue. We accelerate. The USI Council agrees. Earth will not be held back any longer. Do-hyun nodded slowly. Then we should reveal our next project. It's nearly ready anyway. The dimensional communication system? Minji asked, surprised. But I thought that was months away from completion. I've been working on it in private, Do-hyun admitted. After seeing how the Varandari reacted to our first breakthrough, I wanted to be prepared. Director Park looked at him sharply. What does it do? It allows instant communication across any distance, Do-hyun explained. Not just within our solar system, but potentially across the galaxy. Without using the Varandari networks? Minji asked. Do-hyun nodded. Completely independent. They can't monitor it or control it. Director Park was silent for a moment, considering the implications. The Varandari control other species through technology, she said finally. If we can communicate freely with other worlds, then we can share what we've learned, Do-hyun finished. We can help others achieve what we have. Director Park straightened her shoulders. Prepare the system. When Thraxel comes tomorrow to make his demands, we'll show him that humans will not be controlled or limited. As they looked out at the night sky, the stars seemed closer than ever before. Somewhere out there, other beings waited. Perhaps others who had also been called primitive by the Varandari. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of humanity among the stars was about to begin. 5 years had passed since the Varandari first came to Earth. 5 years that had changed everything. Earth was not the same planet. Cities glowed with new energy. Sickness had become rare. Nobody went hungry anymore. Technology had solved many old problems, and humanity had reached the stars. Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of the International Space Station. Once a small outpost in Earth orbit, it was now a massive structure. Ships came and went constantly, carrying people and supplies between Earth, the Moon, Mars, and beyond. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Minji said, joining him at the viewport. Below them, Earth shined blue and green. Above, the stars waited. "We've come so far," Do-hyun agreed. "Sometimes I can hardly believe it." His communication device beeped. Director Park's face appeared on the screen. "They're coming," she said simply. "A Varandari battle fleet just entered the solar system." Do-hyun's stomach tightened. "How many ships?" 20, Director Park replied, "including their flagship. Commander Thraxel has requested an immediate meeting." "I'll return at once," Do-hyun said. He and Minji hurried to their ship, the Swift Wind. It was smaller than the Pioneer but faster. In moments, they were heading back to Earth. The United Science Initiative headquarters buzzed with activity. Earth's leaders had gathered in the main chamber. Screens showed the approaching Varandari fleet. "They want us to stop," said the European representative. "They've demanded we cease all dimensional technology development and end our communications with other systems." Over the past year, Earth had made contact with 3 other civilizations in nearby star systems. All had been visited by the Varandari before. All had been told they were too primitive for advanced technology. "We will not be controlled," Director Park said firmly. "Humanity has earned its place among the stars." Young-ho entered the room carrying a small device. "The dimensional communicator is ready," he announced. "We can broadcast to all our allies at once." Do-hyun nodded. "Let's prepare our response before they arrive." 3 hours later, the Varandari flagship entered Earth orbit. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest human ships. Its dark hull blocked the sun, casting a shadow over the land below. A shuttle descended to the USI headquarters. Commander Thraxel emerged, flanked by 10 officers. Their faces were cold, their movements stiff. They were escorted to the meeting chamber where Director Park waited with Earth's representatives. Do-hyun, Minji, and Young-ho stood beside her. "You have violated the natural order," Thraxel began without greeting. "Your species has developed technologies beyond your maturity level. You have contacted other developing worlds without authorization." Director Park remained calm. "We have violated no natural order, Commander. We have simply grown at our own pace." "A pace that is dangerous," Thraxel snapped. "Your kind still fights wars. You still have tribal divisions, yet now you possess technologies that could destroy worlds." "We have been peaceful in our exploration," Director Park countered. "We have shared knowledge, not weapons." Thraxel's eyes narrowed. "That ends now. The Varandari High Command has decided. You will cease all dimensional technology programs. You will end communications with other systems. You will accept Varandari guidance or face consequences." The room fell silent. "And if we refuse?" Director Park asked quietly. "Then we will be forced to ensure compliance," Thraxel said. "Our fleet stands ready." It was a threat of war. Everyone understood. Director Park looked at Do-hyun. He nodded slightly. "Before we respond," she said to Thraxel, "we would like to show you something." She nodded to Young-ho, who activated the dimensional communicator. The air in the center of the room shimmered. Then images appeared, beings from 3 different worlds, each in their own council chambers watching the meeting on Earth. "What is this?" Thraxel demanded. "A conversation between equals," Director Park explained. "We are broadcasting this meeting to the Tellarans, the Nixari, and the Juverins, all species you classified as primitive and unworthy of advanced technology." Thraxel stared in shock. "This communication network, it bypasses our Covenant channels completely." "Yes," Do-hyun said. "We developed it ourselves. Just as we developed our own dimensional drives, energy systems, and materials." Minji stepped forward. "We didn't just copy your technology, Commander. We understood the principles and improved upon them. We created systems you never imagined. Impossible, one of the Varandari officers hissed. Your species is too young. Age does not determine wisdom, Do-hyun said. Your mistake was thinking that evolution follows only one path, that intelligence can only look like yours. Director Park addressed the Varandari directly. We have no interest in conflict. We wish for peaceful exchange with all species, including the Varandari. But we will not be limited or controlled. You lack the wisdom to use these technologies responsibly, Thraxel insisted. Perhaps, Do-hyun acknowledged. But we possess something you seem to have lost, humility. We know we have much to learn, but we've also proven that no species has a monopoly on innovation or intelligence. The alien representatives watching from other worlds murmured in agreement. Thraxel looked from face to face, seeing determination in the human's eyes and support from the other species. Slowly his posture changed, the arrogance faded, replaced by resignation and, perhaps, a hint of respect. The High Command will not be pleased, he said finally, but I see that threats will not work here. Perhaps we have misjudged your kind. Perhaps you have misjudged many kinds, Director Park suggested. The galaxy would benefit from cooperation rather than control. Thraxel was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will return to the fleet. We will depart without further action. But this conversation is not over. The Galactic Covenant must reconsider its approach to developing species. We would welcome that conversation, Director Park said. As equals. 1 week later, the Varandari fleet departed. They left not with threats, but with an agreement to meet again, this time with representatives from all contacted worlds. On the observation deck of the International Space Station Do-hyun, Minji and Young-ho watched ships arrive from other star systems. For the first time, Earth was hosting visitors from beyond the solar system. It's funny, Minji said. When the Varandari first came, they looked down on us. Now other species look to us for leadership. Not leadership, Do-hyun corrected. Partnership. That's the difference between us and the Varandari. We don't want to control anyone, we want to grow together. Young-ho nodded. They called us primitive apes. But in the end, it was their thinking that was primitive. Do-hyun looked out at the stars, shining in the darkness of space, so many worlds to explore, so many beings to meet, and all of them with something to teach, something to learn. The true measure of intelligence, he said softly, isn't technological advancement. It's the wisdom to know that there's always more to learn. Below them, Earth spun peacefully, no longer alone in the universe, no longer limited by others' expectations. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals in the great community of thinking beings. The primitive apes had evolved, not just technologically, but in understanding what truly mattered in the vastness of space: cooperation, humility, and the endless quest for knowledge. End of story.